just joined us, I'm going to be making a poo in today's lesson. So we're going to be following the process of digestion all the way through the body, and talking about what happens to food on its journey through the digestive system. Okay, so we've talked so far about digestion starting in the mouth, where the teeth carry out mechanical digestion, okay, where they grind up the food in smaller bits, and it's mixed with saliva, so it's a bit slippy. And when it moves to the back of your mouth just before you swallow, that food is known as a bolus, okay? Right, so not just mechanical digestion happens in the mouth, another kind of digestion begins there as well, okay? It's called chemical digestion, okay? Does anyone know the name of the chemicals that carry out digestion or start to carry out digestion in the mouth? Okay, so stick your hand up if you know. Owen, this time, please.
Are they enzymes?
Enzymes, right, excellent. So the enzymes start to get to work. And does anyone know specifically the enzyme that acts in the mouth? What was it called? Nobody? Okay, I'll give you a clue. It breaks down a substance called starch. Does that help? Nope. Okay, so the enzyme that's most prevalent in the mouth is an enzyme called amylase. Okay, so we'll write that on the board. Amylase. And remembering that enzymes tend to end in the letters ASE. Okay, so amylase is enzyme in your mouth. Okay, so you guys can try a little tiny science experiment at home by, if you go to the cupboard, get a little bit of bread and put it in your mouth and chew it for a lot longer than you normally would. So normally you just chew it for a few seconds and then swallow. If you keep that bread in your mouth, it starts to turn sweet. And that is because amylase breaks down starch into sugars, okay? And bread is a very starchy food. So if you keep it in your mouth for a long time, you start to get this sweetness, and that is from it being broken down into sugars in the mouth. Okay, so what happens next? We've got our food. So I've got mine here, the yogurt, banana, Weetabix. It's being crushed up, it's being mixed with a bit of saliva, and then it's going to go down into the stomach. Does anyone know what the tube is called that connects the mouth to the stomach? Okay, so put your hands up if you think you know. Okay, and you guys who are just, it's the same people putting their hands up each time, so I want all of you to have a think, so that I'm not just getting the same few hands, or I'm going to start picking on people. Edith, this time then, please.
Is it the esophagus?
It is the esophagus. Well done. So it's commonly known as the gullet, but its proper name, the term we're going to use, is esophagus. And I'm going to write that on my board for you now because it's a bit of a tricky one to spell. Okay, so here we go. Esophagus. Okay, so you're going to take that down for your notes. So the esophagus is a muscular tube, okay? And so I'm going to demonstrate that muscular tube using an old bit of tights and a ball, okay? So the esophagus is a muscular tube. So remember I said that the food from your mouth gets mixed with the saliva and it gets squished into a ball shape by your tongue at the back of your mouth. So it goes into that tube and a process called peristalsis occurs. So because this tube is made of muscles, muscles can do two things. What are the two things or two states that muscles can be in? Stick your hands up if you know. Toby.
Is it contract and expand?
Not expand, it is contract and what's contract when we're talking about muscles? Anyone remember? Evelyn?
Is it contract and relax?
That's the one. Well done. Okay. So when we've got peristalsis, the muscles in front of the ball of food are relaxed, okay, not tensing at all. Whereas the muscles behind are contracting, and that pushes the ball down the esophagus, okay? And so behind the bolus, muscles contract, and it's like a wave-like contraction, pushing, contracting and relaxing all the way down that tube until we get to the stomach, okay? And that process has a name. It's called peristalsis, and you need to know that term, okay? Okay, here you go. Peristalsis. All right, so we've got our mixed up food, and it now goes into the stomach, and we're going to represent the stomach with this food bag, okay, just a Sainsbury's kind of sandwich bag. So let's just get the food in there. Now you might be thinking, well, why on earth are we representing that with a bag? Well, your stomach is basically just like a big muscular bag, okay? And so your stomach muscles in the lining of the stomach will contract, and that helps to mix the food around in the stomach. But it mixes it in with a couple of things. So can you all have a little think and tell me what is the food in the stomach being mixed with? Okay, there's two particular things that I'm looking for. Okay, have a think. Okay, let's go with Owen.
I was going to say that there has to be an acid present.
Excellent. Do you know what the type of acid is that's in the stomach?
Is it? I know that it's quite a strong acid. I don't know what like elements it has in it or anything.
Okie dokie. Anjali, do you know what acid it is?
Is it a hydrochloric acid?
It is hydrochloric acid. So if we were in school, we would get some hydrochloric acid and add it to our stomach. But I've gone for an ethanoic acid instead because it's one that I've got at home, which is basically vinegar. Okay, so what is the job of that acid? Well, what it does is it kills any bacteria that may have been on the food as it goes into your body. Okay, so it's a defense mechanism, okay, to get rid of any bacteria. Okay, right, and what was the other substance then? So I said there was two things that food in the stomach was going to get mixed with. So acid and Anjali?
Is it digestive enzymes? Or...
Excellent, digestive enzymes. So this time we get a mix of enzymes, but particularly proteases are added here in the stomach, okay, which begin to break down the proteins in your food, okay? So I don't know if you can see, it's looking pretty gross now, that food, that banana yogurt and then wheat bix that we started with. So it's kind of what it's going to look like in your stomach for real. So next, that food would stick into where? Can anyone tell me, where does the food go next? No, okay. Oh, maybe we've frozen here. Okay. So next, it goes into the small intestine. A few things. So the small intestine, first of all, the acid from the stomach has got to be neutralized. Now that is because the stomach, the wall of the stomach has a protective lining so that the cells of the stomach itself are not damaged by the acid. But the small intestine doesn't have that adaptation. So stomach acid is neutralized, okay? And it's neutralized by a substance called bile, okay? So bile is a substance that's produced by the liver, okay? And so bile does a few different jobs. It neutralizes the stomach acid, and it also emulsifies fats, okay? So I'm going to write down some of these key words for you, because you need to know these terms and know what they do, okay? So let's just clean this up, because we've not got much room left on here. Right, so what did we say? Bile. So bile neutralizes the acid and emulsifies. Okay, so that's what bile does. Okay. So what do we mean by emulsifies? So you've probably heard this word, the word emulsion before. So, for example, if you go to B&Q with your parents and buy some paint to decorate your room, it's probably going to be emulsion paint that you buy. And basically, an emulsion paint is water-based, but it also has fats in it. And that's why when you buy that paint, before you start painting it onto the wall, you've got to give it a really, really good stir, because the oily parts of the paint separate from the water parts of the paint. Okay, so in your body, fats want to be emulsified. Obviously, you take in fats as part of your diet, and by emulsifying them, what we're doing is breaking those fats into tiny, tiny little droplets, rather than big pieces. And the reason that is advantageous is because if we break the bigger lumps of fat into lots of smaller lumps of fat, you get a much bigger surface area so that enzymes can work on it, okay? So enzymes that break down fats are called lipases, okay? So it comes from the term lipid. What have I done with my pen? Oh, it's no different at home than it is in school. Lost my whiteboard pen. Oh, there it is. Okay. So lipases. Then, once the fats have been emulsified, they've got a nice big surface area for the lipases to get to work. Okay. So, the small intestine. This is what's going on in that first part of the small intestine. Can anyone tell me what the major job of the small intestine is? What is its main role? What is happening to the food there? Toby Baxter this time, please.
Is it to diffuse the nutrients into the blood?
Okay, yeah, so nutrients will diffuse into the blood, okay, and we call that absorption. We say they are absorbed into the blood, but you're right that it mostly happens by the process of diffusion. There is also some active transport going on, because we don't want the glucose to just pass through the digestive system. So things like sugars, in fact, amino acids, all these things, really useful. So we want them to be in the blood. Okay, so they are also actively transported too. Okay, so both diffusion and active transport moves all those useful nutrients from the small intestine into the blood. Okay, and that is called absorption. Okay, and that absorption is the main job of the small intestine. Okay, So one other thing, we've talked about lipases there, but there are also proteases and carbohydrates, so more amylase in the small intestine. Now, those enzymes are not made in the small intestine. They're made by another organ that is nearby, which is called the pancreas. So if you see, if you've got your textbooks out near to you, have a little look at the first pages on digestion in there, and you'll see like a funny, kind of a long leaf-shaped organ just by the stomach and the liver, and that is the pancreas. Okay, let's start like this. And that's what produces the digestive enzymes for the small intestine. Okay. Right. So this is the food. We're going to add to it bile. So I'm going to use green food colouring to represent the bile, because bile is a kind of green colour. If any of you have ever had a really kind of bad food poisoning and been really, really sick, then, you know, if you're really, really sick, then you might puke up some bile, and it's quite acidic because it'll be mixed with stomach acid, and it tastes really, really, really horrendous. And it's got a greenish colour. Okay, so that's the bile gone in here to my kind of food mixture, my partly digested food mixture. And so I'm also going to add the other thing then that's added in the small intestine, which is enzymes. So I'm going to use some washing up gel, because washing up liquid, not liquid, sorry, like detergent for washing your clothes, that contains enzymes. And the reason it contains enzymes is basically all the stains on your clothing are either made of proteins, mostly proteins. Some are made of fats, and some are made of carbohydrates. So if we use enzymes, just the same, those enzymes can break down those molecules and therefore get rid of the stains on your clothes. Okay. So next, the mixture will then go into the large intestine. Okay. And in the large intestine, the major job is, again, absorption. But this time, it's not nutrients that are being absorbed, it's water that is absorbed. Okay. And one thing that is added is we get the breakdown of red blood cells. Okay. And this is actually what makes your poo brown. Okay. So old, dead, red blood cells have a kind of browning colour. And I'm going to use, I didn't have any regular food colouring, so I've got some food colour gel. So hopefully this is going to add the red colour to represent those red blood cells. Oh, helps. I've got to cut the lid off of this. I've not used it before. Okay. So we'll pop a bit of that in to represent those red blood cells that are broken down in the body. Red blood cells have got a lifespan of about 90 days, so 3 months. So they're being replaced all the time in your body. Okay. Right. So this next bit's probably going to get a little bit gross. What we're going to do is use that pair of tights again to represent the large intestine. Okay. And so if we squeeze this food out in the tights, what hopefully will happen is the water will be removed. Okay, it'll be kind of filtered out, and we will be left with the waste. Okay, so what food substance isn't absorbed by the body in either the small or the large intestine? Can anyone tell me? So we've talked about proteins being digested and absorbed, and fats, and also carbohydrates. So what's another food group, if you like, that or nutrient that's not absorbed? Annabelle.
Is it fibre?
Fibre, yeah, well done. So fibre, even though it's not absorbed, is an absolutely essential part of the diet. And that is so that it keeps things moving through the digestive system. Okay, so this is the gross bit. I should probably put gloves on for this, but I'm not going to. Just have to wash my hands afterwards. So let's get our kind of wet food mix from the food bag here. I'm going to squeeze it into, let's do this over the chopping board so I don't make a big mess. I'm going to squeeze it into the large intestines, the types that are going to represent the large intestine. Okay, here we go. There we are. Right, so as the food moves along the large intestine, any water in there would be squeezed out. Now, you probably can't see that. I don't want to hold it too close to my computer in case it drips on it. But there is water starting to be squeezed out through the material of the tights. And so that's representing, mimicking what happens in the body, okay? So I'm now going to squeeze this through the tights. So this is what happens as it's moving through the large intestine. And eventually, the waste food will reach what's called the rectum, and that is where that waste is stored until it's ready to be eliminated from the body through the anus. Okay, so this is like kind of watery stuff coming out through the tights here. Ready, and there we are. I'll have to wash my hands before I show you what I've made. Okay, it's not very brown. Should have added more food colouring, I think. But there you go. From plate to poo. So that is the story of digestion, guys, and how it works. Has anyone got any questions from anything that I've gone through so far? Nope. Okay, brilliant. So I'm going to stop recording and then I'll run through what it is I would like, what work I would like you to do now. Okay.